Their square measure varied terms used for ideals that square measure meant to dictate our behavior. These ideals square measure place in situ with the goal of constructing our societies operate a lot of swimmingly. They're meant to stay individuals safe whereas remaining respectful of everyone's personal freedoms. Laws and rights square measure things we tend to hear concerning throughout our lives, however what's the association between them? However do they relate to every other? And the way do they differ? We're most likely all accustomed to the thought of the law, that if you fail to stick to the declared tips you'll most likely be in would like of legal services in each Nashville and bowling inexperienced. However square measure these laws place in place? Square measure they cut loose our rights? Let's clear this up a touch bit by wanting deeper into wherever our laws come back from. However we tend to got the idea of our rights, and the way they relate to every alternative. Law. The idea of law is mostly called a system of rules that's placed in situ by governmental systems with the goal of regulation the conduct of the voters. However, law has been debated for an extended time as either a science or an art. Is there a customary equation, or square measure their nuances? This discussion is why we've legal services for our communities to navigate the typically confusing world of our system. Law is split into two major factions, law and personal law. Public law. This space of our system governs the relationships between people and also the government. This includes tax law, administrative law, procedural law, constitutional law, criminal law. Because of the actual fact that law is said to the connection between voters and bigger governing bodies, the entities concerned square measure inherently unequal. The government is far larger than a singular person. However, each the government and also the individual square measure expected to act in accordance with the law, despite this imbalance. Examples of law is as minor as a jaywalking fine, and go up to evasion. However, as a result of the law works in each directions, a personal may bring actions against the government like soliciting for a review of charges. Private law. This space of law deals with disputes between people or organizations. This includes property law, commercial law, family law, contracts, torts. As personal law deals with people on a lot of equal level than law, it is a custom dictate the duties of people at intervals their relationships. Tort law, as an example, is brought enacted in reaction to one person transportation hurt to a different. Examples of personal law is quite varied, however embody circumstances like custody disputes, boundary line disputes, and private injury cases. The Bill of Rights. This is a document that features the primary 10 amendments to the US Constitution, although a lot of were further later. It dictates a series of private freedoms to be enjoyed by voters of the country. They are freedom of faith, speech, and press, right in reality, arms, housing of troopers, protection from unreasonable search and arrest, right to group action of law, right to a good trial, civil cases rights, freedom from excessive bail, cruel and strange punishments, rights preserved by the individual states' rights. Their square measure currently 27 amendments to the US Constitution, however these square measure the first 10 enclosed within the Bill of Rights. These rights square measure mostly viewed because the pillars of a simply and truthful society. The relationship between rights and laws. It will appear on the surface that the final principles between rights and laws square measure constant, to guide individuals toward a society that's hospitable and useful to all or any people. And whereas these goals can be constant, the particular justifications and manifestations is quite completely different. A right are some things someone ought to have during a society. These square measure ideals that relate to the final, everyday affordances for someone. They will be as straightforward because the right to talk, travel, or apply traditions that don't hurt anybody else. A law is an enforceable direction which will be met with penalty if not followed. Ideally, our laws would be determined by strict adherence to our rights. However, this can be not continuously the case. This leads USA to a different massive distinction between rights and laws. Laws square measure a lot of simply altered. As we are able to see by the amount of constitutional amendments, our rights is altered in addition. However, this can be way less common compared to modified laws. Our laws is challenged, changed, or upheld. Our rights square measure meant to be understood and warranted. A great example of the connection between the two is that the civil rights movement of the 60s. African American leaders felt their rights weren't being upheld by the law, so that they protested and fought against these injustices. In the end, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 modified the law to higher mirror the constitutional rights of those voters.